So, hey, go back a second.
But you pointed at it.
Who is this?
What's his name? Yeah.
Father Boyle.
Greg Boyle. Very
Yeah. So, if we're talking about Father Boyle, we're talking about living our faith, right?
Who are these?
I don't know.
So, yeah. Well, that's me. That's no, it's not. All right, we got tons of announcements going on, right? Today, we got next Tuesday chaplain chat, conscious conversation next Tuesday night, guys. 8 to 9 weeks. We have I can't remember. Do you remember what the topic is next week?
That's.
Oh, death penalty. We are doing death penalty again. Anna will be with us.
Yes.
Did I talk to you? So, we got such an intimate group today, so we're really going to talk amongst each other today, okay? So the 10th, we leave on our fall work trip. So let me know for sure if you're going. So you're on?
Yeah,
You're on? You're on. Peyton's not. And you're going to go, Dundee?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Fantastic. So we beat last year's by 1. Woo, good. Okay. So we leave. We're going to leave at 8:30 on Thursday morning. Do you guys want to meet here? Is it easier here or at the Weeks house? Or does it matter?
I don't think it matters so much matter for the Weeks house.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay. So is that okay with you? Because you're the
Yeah.
farthest one away, I think. So that and I could actually pick you up on the way. But so we'll leave at 8:30. We will leave Kemmer Village on the 12th and at 8. So we're home by 10:30. So okay. So then you guys got the entire day. Is there a football game that day?
I think it's away.
So anyway, so you got a day to rest though before come back. Tuesday, October 15th, we're gonna start the interfaith group 7 to 8 at the Weeks house. I haven't got that on the pipeline yet, but
I'm not touching anything.
you just went like
I wasn't touching anything.
okay.
Sure you went leaning on it?
So there's the service. We're done.
Good service,
Way to go, guys. So anyway, we're gonna start the interfaith group. If you're interested in that, we're gonna come discuss. I want to discuss with you guys what you guys want to do out of that. I want it to be an educational group, and I also want you guys to have fun, learn about different faiths and how we can work together. Okay. Thursday the 17th, 3:30, Trueback Amphitheater, Blessing of the Animals. That is a fun service, you guys. And we'll have worship that night too, but that, if you haven't seen a Blessing of the Animals service, it's a fun service. People enjoy it. Laura Moore brings Opal, her golden retriever. Emily brings the corgis, you know, and then like, well, I don't know how many cats we'll have this year because Lena's cat's gone. But you know, I think we had what 11 or 12 animals last year.
That was a good one.
And Dwayne already told me that he's bringing his dog this year, so it'll be fun. Okay, so that come by for that. Okay, so the quote that I found. This is a really powerful quote, and I think it's one that just is really telling of how we should do things. But Jesus calls us to confront personal and society prejudices. He calls us to love those whom we may find most difficult to love, those easiest to stereotype, and those easiest for us to despise. Think about that for a second. Why would that be difficult? Or is it?
I think it is difficult, especially like people do very evil things to other people.
It
So,
is.
Or especially to yourself, if someone does you wrong. Or someone you know makes it personal.
That might be one of the hardest you're bringing up, right? Is when they harm you.
It also depends on like who you're hearing it from. Because a lot of times there's not direct hate for someone that you don't like, but you're hearing information you're close to. So my friend say this person has done this, and because my friend got under, I'm just hearing this story. Now I might not have the love that I showed for that person.
What about people that put you in the middle of something? What about that? Is it hard to love those people? Have you ever been put in the middle of like a dispute with your friends, or people try to come to you and put you on their side. You know what I'm saying? That's always one for me that I wrestle with. In fact, I've gotten to the point where I just back out of them and say, yeah, I don't do that. So, in fact, just this week I was asked to mediate something and I was like, the person that you're asking me to mediate is not even involved in this conversation. So, you're actually asking me to get on the side of this person versus truly mediating, right? That's hard for me to love at times, but that's what we have to do is we kind of have to work on it. So anyway, I found that and I just loved it. All right, call to worship.
Come unto me, you who are depressed.
As well as all who are oppressed,
Come unto me, you who are hungry.
and all who are angry,
Come to me, all who are seeking comfort.
and all who have lost hope,
Come unto me, you who are anxious.
and all who are bitter and frantic.
Come to the place of blessings where you will find respite, peace, and joy.
Come down and discover our neighbors from God. All right, guys, let's talk about this. If you have one word to describe who God is, who is God to you?
Love.
Love. I don't know where you would have gotten that. I think that's a great word. What else comes to mind? One word.
Grace.
Grace. Okay.
Refuge.
Refuge. Nice. What else, guys? So, since we got such a small group, I told you, we're not going to just pass stuff up. Dr. you were going to say something?
Caring.
Caring. That's a great one. So, now, if you hear these adjectives, tell me who God is in just a short phrase to you as an individual. Is God a friend? Is God a father? Is God a mother? Is God relevant? Is God separated? Transcendent, immanent, all these stuff. Who do you guys think God is? There's no right answer. What? Or no, no wrong answer. A friend? Explain.
I think it's, well, yes, God is like the father of all. I think one of the biggest things I was learning, at least Christianity and through my faith alone, is it's always to have a good relationship with God and with Jesus. And yes, you can have a good relationship with your like father, but you're gonna probably tell a lot more things to your friend than you would your father, because there's some things you're like, I don't want my parents to know this, or I don't want my dad to know this. But your friends, you can tell them really anything, because a lot of your friends, if you tell them something, won't really care as much as your parents might. If that makes sense.
Don't tell me my children have kept things from me.
Yes.
Maybe so.
I never did do that.
And he's so sweet. That's great. I like that though. What else? I mean, if you guys had to just define God or how you see God, how do you describe it? Say somebody's asking you about faith. Somebody's asking you about your faith. What is so big about God? How do you answer that? Or why come to worship? Why get involved in the spiritual path? I just threw like 8 questions at you.
Yeah.
I think the reason I come here is like to get closer to God, because especially last year, I was very timid. I was very anxious to be on college campus because I was having really big like separation anxiety, and I was already trying to just figure stuff out as a senior in high school. And now I have to go to a new area, almost 4 hours away from family, and now I need to figure out how to not walk in my faith alone, but like how to walk in where I don't have maybe some of my other family or friends back at home kind of guiding me in a way. So this is kind of teaching me how to do it with newer people, but also how to do it by myself and alone with this God.
What else? Anna.
I think for God to me is like much more comforting. Like he doesn't have paternal or maternal feelings because like those are very much held by my parents. But he's like kind of this third entity in my life. And it's a lot more I would say quiet and like right now we're all going through like a pretty tumultuous time in our lives. We're thinking about like what am I gonna be in 5 years, what am I gonna be in 10 years, and it's like this presence, you know, is gonna be with you. Even if like say you might be living 5,000 miles away from your parents in 12 months. So it's just like this presence that's very calming and comforting.
That's, I love that. That's great. What about you, Dan?
I'm thinking right now,
You're such a deep kid. I mean, always. I love our conversations. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
but you're fine.
Actually, I did, but yeah.
There's nothing personal.
So the reason I'm asking you this is so often God is retributive, vengeful. You know, how many of you have thought, oh, this God's gonna be mad at me? Ever had that thought? That it happens. Or have you heard, you know, God doesn't like gay people. God doesn't like this person or that person, right? Well, that's terrible theology, by the way. But you have to have an imagination, because faith is about imagining things. Faith is about understanding something bigger. The Gospel of John, we hear John, the author, say, God bless those who believe, who can't see. When you can't see something, it can be awful easy to kind of let go and release yourself. So you have to do these things. This is why I push you guys a little bit and ask you these questions, right? Because I want your mind thinking, because your faith journey is not just this, oh, I love God and it's over. You have to think, you have to grow, you have to be willing to ask questions, because that's how we learn, that's how we explore the magnificent wonder of God, right? I mean, there's so much out there that's so cool and so exciting, you know, and too often we make God this boring entity that likes this, doesn't like this, likes these people or doesn't like these people. We're seeing it right now in the elections, right? We're seeing literally people say God loves this person more than this person, right? Those are challenging things to be. So that brings us to, who is our neighbor defined by God? Who's your neighbor?
Everyone.
There's a good answer. Everyone. And why would that be? Why? Can't we just say it's good Christians are our neighbors?
We're all created in the image of God, it says in the Bible, and then we're told to love our enemies. And we're all sinners. Not a single one of us isn't. And that just makes us evil in a way. To love one another, because we all fall short of grace.
You don't know it, but I don't sin.
Yeah, I'm losing.
In his application saying, in his application it says, did you say no?
yeah. Absolutely right. We all make mistakes. Every day we make mistakes. Every day we have issues, right? I can count at least 5 times today where I thought, oh, I need to do that better, right? Or I should have done this better. I did a devotion today for the trustees, and I look at it now and think, aha, yes, it went pretty good, but I could have done it so much better if I would have taken more time here, here, and here, right? Those things happen. We all do it. The problem is, we actually see people put up like a hierarchy on sin, don't we? Well, you just cheated on a test, that's not a big deal. But if you cheat on this, that's a huge deal. Or you cheat on your spouse or what have you, right? That is a big deal, by the way. But, you know what I'm saying? There's no hierarchy of sin, right? God does not define you by your worst acts. Do you understand what that means? You're not defined by your worst acts. growing up, I was always like scared of what God was gonna punish me for, right? I mean, I'd say a prayer, I'd do something stupid, and I'd think, oh, I'm not gonna have a good basketball game next week because God's gonna punish me for whatever I did, right? Literally, that's stuff that went through my head. Now I think that's silly, but the reality is that's kind of what happens when you do guilt-driven or fear-driven theology, right? Scared of God because you know you're just worm dirt. Well, that's not right, because what'd you say in Genesis, right? We're created what?
Equally, in the image of God.
In the image of God, right? So how can that be bad if we're created in God's image? So that's kind of where we have to go with this neighbor stuff, because we're gonna talk about the Good Samaritan tonight, so go. So we're gonna do some prayers first, and I was dying to do this for you. So let us go to this time of prayer.
As we come to this moment in time, let us embrace an attitude that welcomes one another as neighbors and sees past the stereotypes and labels we place upon one another. Strengthen us to stand against violence in any form and live with an understanding of peace and community. We ask you to be with our friends that are from the Middle East. Help them through these tumultuous times. Let them feel your embrace as they walk through this struggle, able to know that they are not alone. For Israel, we ask that you would teach and bring forth an ethic of compassion and peace. Instill in them a willingness to end all violence and bring healing into the world. We ask that you would be with those who are grieving loss and let them find strength. We lift our neighbors from Gaza and ask that your spirit of grace and love land upon them and lead them to a place of peace and comfort. Let them feel your loving embrace as they grieve the loss of so many. Open their hearts to feel your presence in this tragic time. Lift them so that they may heal from the physical and emotional wounds that penetrate so many. Be with the leaders of those leaders whose regions are seeking to solve issue through violence. Help them to discover peaceful ways to bring an end to violence. Open their eyes to see each other as human and help them to connect so that we may experience peace in our days. Lead all those who hold on to power to surrender their need to control and open themselves to seeing that building community and connection are the only productive ways to engage with one another. Let us all see that we need light in those dark times. Let us be courageous and willing to become that light. Lead us to share with one another and to embody your love ethic in all that we do. We ask all this in your precious words you have taught us to pray.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, ma'am. You did great. Right.
Reading from Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, what is written in the law? What do you read there? He answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, you have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live. But wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you may spend. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? He said, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said to him, go and do likewise.
Go and do likewise. So, I'm not a huge music fan at times, but I think there's some songs that really can push us to a deep sense of things. And this is one of my favorite songs. It's one that I think is transformative, especially when you talk about it from the perspective of the imagination and living into who God calls us to be. So just let's listen to this a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the text.
Imagine there's no heaven. See if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country that isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm the believer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you join us. And the world will be one. Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, or brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
And the world will live as one. That's a challenging statement. I love John Lennon. I love the music of John Lennon. But this song pushes me all the time, and whenever I think of it, I think of this text. So what we have to do is, in the chorus or in the verse there, it says we shall all live as one. But in order to live as one, we have to ask the right questions. We have to ask the right questions and come to the understanding of who matters and why do they matter. So Dr. King absolutely has the best commentary on this text that I've ever read. And this is what his premise is. The first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? You guys probably don't know it, but if there was blood on the man, if the priest and Levite stopped, he would be considered unclean. So one of the scholars, many scholars argue that they think that the priest and Levite may have been going to the temple, and if they stop and touch this man who's bleeding, they can't go into the temple. So they're thinking, what would happen to me if I stop and help this man? Instead of thinking the next question, which is the question the Samaritan asked. If I do not stop and help this man, what will happen to him? What will happen to him? Here, in those two questions, you have essentially religion, transformative religion. happen to me if I stop? That's doctrinal stuff, right? If they touch him, he's unclean, you can't go. What will happen to him is a Jesus question. For lack of a better word, right? That's the question. What will happen to him? Our society right now lives in this world of narcissism often, right? It's about I. The problem is our faith journeys and our world of spirituality is a we. We live this world together. We matter to each other because God created us. Not God created me and not you, which is what some people like to say. This is why you'll hear me say it's not a liberal thing or anything else. It's a justice issue. If somebody says, well, they're illegal. Has anybody ever been around when I've heard somebody say that to somebody? You guys haven't heard me, right? Well, I counter that. That no person is illegal in God's eyes. You understand? Because we have to ask, what will happen to them? What will happen to this other person? So, excellent. So we have to ask the right questions. So, what does it mean for us to ask the right questions? What kind of questions should we ask when we read text? How do we live our faith when we are so often unwilling to walk with one another? How do we be faithful servants when we're so busy and consumed with a personal Jesus? You guys have heard it, right? God is my Savior. Nobody else, just mine. That's horrible theology. Now, yes, Jesus is my Savior. That's how I feel. That's how, but it's not just me. It's not just mine. You understand? It's ours. Jesus is here for all of us. God is here for all of us. And too often we've taken that. You guys probably don't remember it, but do you guys remember commercials where Budweiser had what they call the born on date? So whenever the beer was made, that's probably way before your time, isn't it? So, theologically, there was a big movement in the early 90s around people would come up and say, when were you saved? What day were you born again? And you tell them. In my Navy days when I was not so nice and not so gentle and the loving kindness and kind man that I would say, you're treating Jesus like a Bud Light. Put a date on it. That's when you were saved. The reality is, guys, that were you saved as a child when you were baptized?
Saved every day.
Boom. There isn't a day. It's constant. But the problem is when we think there is a day, then we think we have a day when we can proclaim what's right and what's wrong. But when we understand that this happens every day, that God still speaks to us. Peyton, you and I were having a wonderful conversation, right, about how we do this, right? And I want your input. You know why I want your input? Because God speaks to all of you differently than God speaks to me. And I gotta listen. Because you guys will give me insights. Because this ministry thing is not me saying, I have 3 degrees and I know more than you, so let me express my wisdom to you, and then you go out into the masses. That's crap. That's the theological term. What it is we talk to each other, and we walk with each other, and we work with each other, and we serve each other. Because you guys are just as close to God as I am, right? I just have degrees. And because of that, I know that it's important to see you guys. And it's important for you guys to see me, I hope. Because we're together on this journey. And we're only together if we're willing to ask the question, the right questions. If I'm just worried about me, then what good are we? Nothing. I'll be saved. Really? I don't want to be by myself in this world. I want to be with y'all. Because you make my life complete. But you only do that when we see each other the way we're called to see each other. So that's how we ask the right questions. How do we define our neighbors, who our neighbors are? And can we make a difference? We talked about that last week a little bit, right? Do you honestly think, seriously, or no, I think I meant to say it in class, that when you get up in the morning, do you think you can change the world? Think again?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, I think you can do anything if you just think that you can't and you won't a chance of doing it. And it's more than just you, genuinely, it's everyone that has to be a part of it. So your influence can carry on, and can't do it alone.
No, Peyton, did you say something?
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. Like, you're not gonna change the world like that or like just in a day. It does take time, but you can't be the one to like start that change, because you can, even if it's just one class that you're in, it's like everyone in that class just hates each other for one reason or another. No one talks to that class. This class splits in half. It's this group and that group, and then just one person going over and talking to what the other group is not going to change that relationship, change the relationship with that classroom, and that they can go. Those other people can go and take that to their next class or to their next, or to the rest of their friends and stuff like that.
So you can change the world. You can, Dante?
This might sound counterintuitive, but in a sense, I feel like it has to be kind of a two-way thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, you can try and change something, but the other person has to be willing to change it. Like, at least listen in that sense,
Yep.
and then decide, do I wanna change my opinion on this, or do I still wanna stick with this? So I would argue that,
Okay,
maybe not.
you just hit a great point, because what did you just describe? What is that you're describing between point A and point B? It's what are you, it is, but it's also a relationship forming, right? And that's how you change the world. One relationship at a time. So you're dead on. That's exactly right. But we have to be willing, but we also have to be willing that if we're wanting to help somebody or work on something or connect with somebody, that we have to understand how they want us to connect with them, right? We can't just say, you gotta do it my way, right? We have to do it together. We meet each other where we're at. The Samaritan got met where he was at. Well, the guy on the road got met by the Samaritan where he was at, not where the guy wanted the Samaritan to be, right? That's Jesus' greatest attribute, is he meets everybody where they're at. Jesus didn't go to the leper and say, hey, I know you're down in your luck, but you gotta do a better job, right? Or to the prostitute and say, you know, if you weren't hooking, I'd help you. Or the woman who committed adultery that got brought to him by all those guys. You know, he didn't bend down in the sand and say, okay guys, start throwing. He bent down in the sand and he said, hey, you sin much? Why are you throwing a stone if you sin too?
Who has not sinned, cast the first stone.
Yep. So the relationship, just like you're saying, Dante, thank you, that's fantastic, that's exactly right. All of you hit exactly right. You guys ever heard the starfish story? I'm sure you have. Right? It's one of my favorite stories. A guy, the sea's coming in, right, and the tide comes in and leaves all these starfish on the beach. And as it's going on, this old guy every day goes and he takes the starfish one at a time and throws them back in the ocean. Some knucklehead comes up to him and says, "Oh man, what are you doing? You ain't gonna make a difference." And the old man bends over, grabs a starfish, puts him in, and looks at the guy and says, "What? Do you remember?
I make a difference for that one.
I made a difference for that one." That's what we have to do theologically. We have to make a difference. And you only do that when you're getting all my guys today, guys. Pope Francis, like the Good Samaritan, may we be ashamed of touching, may we not be ashamed of touching the wounds of those who suffer, but try to heal them with concrete acts of love. I love that phrase, concrete acts of love, right? That's such a cool phrase, because that's what we need. You know, guys, that Shane Claiborne was talking at a conference, and he said that the Pew Research did a survey. I think I probably told you, some of you guys this already. He did a survey on Christians and non-Christians. And they asked, what is the first word you come up with when you think of Christians? And do you want to know what 60% of the answers were? What the one word was? Can you take a guess? It was hate. They hate gays. They hate lesbians. They hate this. They hate that. Now, in John's gospel, it doesn't say they will know you by your hate. Do you guys know what it says? They'll know you by your love, by your compassion, by your grace. That 60% of the respondents to that survey, now I don't know where they, what their demographic was, where or whatever, but any demographic that says that we as Christians better do a better job, right? We better do a better job of loving people, caring for them, understanding that it's not us versus them stuff. But you only do that when you are willing to ask the right questions and see people for who they are. So concrete acts of love. I'm telling you, all my guys. This is one of my favorites. God is not upset at Gandhi for not being a Christian because God is not a Christian. All of God's children and their different faiths help us to realize the immensity of God. Let that sit with you for a minute. And he's not bashing Christianity. He was the Archbishop of the Episcopal Church, right? What he's telling you is God is bigger than we can ever imagine. How cool is that? And once we get to that point, then guess who else becomes bigger? Our neighbors. Our understanding of who our neighbor is. That's what Tutu's getting at. By the way, do you guys know how much I love him? Just let me know.
We're gonna watch this movie again?
We will at the end of the semester.
It's gonna be an end of semester thing. We're just
Yep.
gonna watch that.
Every
We
year.
get the book, man.
You guys got the book now?
We should get the book.
I'll get the book for you. Do you guys want to do a book club on the Divine Book, the Book of Joy?
Yeah.
You guys want to do that? I'm
Mission
telling you,
Lord.
don't tease me. You guys know how many times I've read this book. I love this book, right?
I'd love to read it, man.
There is an audio book. I have it on audio. I have it on physical. I have it everything. I think I have multiple copies of it actually. So, yes, if I was looking for another reason to get together, Sunday night book club. People good with it?
Yeah, Sunday night, we're.
Would that work perfect for everybody?
It's not next Sunday.
Well, next Sunday we're gone,
Well,
but we'll start the Sunday after fall break.
Yeah.
I can't do a group. when
Oh,
we-
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. But we'll get people to sign up for the book, and we'll order the book, and we'll have it in 2 days, and so this week, remind me, this is your job. Remind me that I need to send an email out that we're gonna do this study on the Book of Joy. If you're interested, let me know, cause I'll get the book, cause I have funds right now, so, which is not something I normally can say, so, let's do that. All right.
Another one.
I told you, you're getting all my hits, right? The person who is in love with their vision of community will destroy community. But the person who loves the people around them will create community everywhere they go. How powerful is that, guys? You know, I did my master's thesis on Bonhoeffer, and it took me till last year doing some more research that I found that quote. I would have actually rewritten my entire master's thesis on that quote.
Just that cool.
Just that quote, right? That's fantastic. Do you understand what he's saying there? What's he saying? Tell me.
You can't make a community on what you want to do, because that's not really a community. It's kind of like more of a dictatorship. You have to make a community with loving everyone else in that community. You can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with others and make everyone else love and respect they deserve.
Very good.
Well, basically what he's saying, you gotta love the people in the community to make it a community. Because, I mean, he formed a coup against Adolf Hitler, so he helped form a coup against him.
Yeah, he was part. Look at you. Make me proud. You know what that coup was called?
No.
Look it up.
That's a crazy name.
Huh?
That's a crazy name for it.
Okay, Dante, you're fitting right in. It was called the Avoir.
Yeah, boy.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
It's German, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't mean kill Hitler, but I mean, but I'm not really sure what it means right now off the top of my head. I used to know, but I can't. I'll look it up, see if we can find it. So, here's the thing. Did you guys ever see Valkyrie? I think was the name of the movie, Tom Cruise. Huh? Did you? So, did they talk about it in there?
I watched the movie, I just heard about the guy.
Disappointment.
You're so excited.
So, 4 of you were in the Religion in America class that I taught, right?
defense.
So, huh?
It's like defense.
There you go. Haha, Dante beat you on the Google race.
Yeah.
That
It sounded
defense, so,
familiar with the little German I have,
yeah,
so it made sense in defense.
so, yeah, that makes sense though, defense, so that, yeah, that's right, okay. When you read this quote, he is arguing against a type of Christianity that we're seeing right now. Boom. Where do you see that at? Bottom or top? Tough question, right?
Yeah.
And what is it? Where's the Christian nationalism? Where is that? What does that mean? Why would Christian nationalism tie with the top?
Because it says in love with their original community.
Yeah.
But I think that like certain people, like the whites and blacks or whatever should be separated, certain people should be separated, Christians or something like that.
Yep.
Like it's
Yeah.
not all one whole community that they want to be a part of.
Yeah, they want community on their own terms,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah. So that is important to see.
Bye.
So that's a fire call. So we started with him. We're gonna close with him. I admire the Good Samaritan, but I don't want to be one. I don't want to spend my life picking up people by the side of the road after they have been beaten up and robbed. I want to change the Jericho Road so that everybody has an opportunity for a job, education, security, and health care. It's one of my favorite quotes. I think he's dead on. And I've actually changed, he has changed my vision of the Good Samaritan in so many ways because of this quote, right? The problem is that we have this issue that there's an archbishop in South America that said, you know, they love me and they flower me with awards and beautiful compliments when I help the poor. But when I ask, why are they poor? They call me a communist, a socialist. They don't want me asking that question. That's that right there. They're good with you helping one person here or there, but how dare you change a system? That's why it's hard. It's extremely difficult to change, but we are called to change it. And you guys hear this often from me, right? You guys are the next generation up. And you have the power to change things. You have the voice. So go out and use it. Use it for good. Tell people about the love of God that transforms all other things. And live our faith. Live our faith out. Holy cow, guys, I went long today. Yeah, you guys need to tell me.
You're going on today.
So, I want you guys to think about this over break. So we won't see each other for a couple weeks. Well, we will, but
This won't meet, right?
Anna won't be here. Peyton won't be with us. But you know, living our faith. That's what the trip is about, right? It's actually living a service-centered life. By the way, I may have, maybe next year, we may be going to Tulsa to tour the Tulsa Massacre Museum, possibly, for our fall trip. But I don't know for sure, so I don't want to get out there too yet, but I had to talk to
I
them.
thought it was in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
From Arizona.
Oklahoma, 1921. Yeah, it's, you guys know it pretty well, because I talked about it a lot last year, but, yeah, come talk to me, we'll talk, because I think it's one of the moments in history that we need to know more about, and I didn't even know about until I was in seminary, so. But we have to learn to live as neighbors and love our neighbors, and that's the challenge, guys. You guys, and we can do that. So, let's close in prayer. Thanks for letting me go 5 minutes long today, you guys. You know, I did warn you a little bit when I was gonna do the Good Samaritan. I get kind of wound up with the Good Samaritan. So, I I know I've told JC a million times, but this was my ordination text. This is what I used during my ordination service, because that's the text that I want to center my theological base. So, all right, so let's pray, guys. Most compassionate, loving God, thank you for always watching over us. Please, as we depart, help us always to seek to live with your glorious love as our guide. Empower us to be strong enough to see past the negativity and the ugliness that takes place each and every day, and let us find hope and grace for what is and can be possible. Let us go willing to live as you teach us to live, and willing to be inspired and to inspire others to truly love radically. Go in peace, everybody. Amen. Have a safe and loving homecoming, guys. Oh, hey, inauguration tomorrow, 2 o'clock. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I'll try to. I might be leaving before.
What?
Where is it gonna be in?
It's at